Hello, and welcome to Here's the Thing with Robbie and Jose, where we explore relationships through a male and female perspective. With me, as always, is the lovely Robbie.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Enjoying the good weather we're having?
Yes.
We had some gnarly storms come through.
Yeah. You never know. It changes all the time.
Yeah.
Last week we were talking on the pod a lot about. We started talking about like phrases, like old phrases. And like just terms, right? And it kind of got me thinking, actually the last couple of weeks, and we have also posed some questions about like dating apps and things like that. So I started thinking about like, wouldn't it be fun to do an episode on some like dating terms, slang, and a little bit of history with some dating.
So you're talking about like old people when old people call you honey?
No, not necessarily.
Because like, and it could be a male or a female, by the way, but like they call you honey.
Yeah.
When you not so much now when I'm 47, but like back in the day when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if it's an older lady, she's like, "Come here, honey," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." You're calling me honey, but I guess it's a term. Like I can call everybody honey, so I don't feel that weird about it, but at the same time I feel weird because you just called me honey.
Yeah.
I'm not, and I would imagine like if an older guy did that and it was a young woman and he was just like, "Come here, honey."
Yeah, the origin stories of that. I mean, I would assume that because honey is sweet, somebody tasted it one time and then they maybe called their wife, "Hey honey."
Yeah,
just
sugar.
Yeah.
Hey, sugar.
Sugar lumps.
Sugar lumps.
Yeah, I've heard that. Like the cues, the old school, they put it in tea in the lumps.
Yeah. And I mean, there's other, there's other little terms that some people might call them pumpkin or something like that. Come here, pumpkin or something. Peanut, whatever. Anyways, I'm sorry.
Peanut. I think that's usually like used for like kids though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But once you reach a certain, I have a friend of mine, he's my age and he does that. He calls, ladies honey and sweetie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He doesn't mean it maliciously and it doesn't come off as creepy or anything like that.
Maliciously?
Well, not malicious. You know what I mean? Like he's not trying to say that he's better or anything. He's not trying to be misogynistic or anything like that. That's just how he likes to speak to women.
No, this is just going to be a hodgepodge, like I said, just of history and slang. I got old slang. I got some new slang we can talk about.
Slang?
Oh, there's new slang. I am not hip to this, like the new slang. So some of these are really funny that I learned today. But the first one I want to talk about is the expression of, "Are you rationed?" And so this one...
Okay, that's the expression. Are you rationed?
Yes, are you rationed?
Okay.
So this came from the 1940s when sugar was scarce. And so, it's funny. So it's basically saying, "Are you taken?" And what made me laugh about this is that it's actually in one of my favorite movies of all time, Clueless. There is a scene where Christian is talking to Cher and he said, "Hey, are you rationed?" And she was like, "Huh?"
But he was like a 50s.
No, he was. But I thought I knew everything about that movie, but I've seen it a million times and I've seen that scene, but I never thought about what he was really saying.
Right.
So like, I don't know, maybe. And then it also too made me think about, remember when we tried to bring back jeeping, which is also a Clueless term. Are you jeeping?
I did. Can you explain to people what that means?
Okay, so for anyone who...
It took me a minute too. I didn't know what that meant, but go ahead.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm assuming that when they made the movie, because I haven't heard it outside of the movie. You know how like when a new movie comes out, so we got a lot of slang from Clueless. From anyone who hasn't seen it, the as if, loser, whatever.
Not all of them great, but yes, there was pop
like
culture, man,
when they talk about a good looking guy, like he's a Baldwin and all that stuff. Anyways, so jeeping is basically saying like, do you have someone on the side? Are you cheating? And I'm assuming it comes from like parking, kind of like if you're jeeping, like you're somewhere.
You're in a
like,
Jeep?
Well, I guess. I mean, that was a big thing in the 90s.
I thought that's what it was, that they were in Jeeps. And
I just thought it meant like parking with anyone, like in a secluded area. Like, just you can't say like, "Are you vehicling?" Like maybe it's just a cuter way of like, "Are you jeeping?"
Yeah, I mean, and then it turned into creeping. But creeping that I don't know.
Creeping and jeeping and creeping.
You know what I mean? Like jeeping came before creeping, but then afterwards everybody just started saying creeping.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that if those
Yeah,
two
I think it
things
was
were.
during the pandemic. Jose and I were talking about it. We're like, we should bring back that word or that term,
Yeah,
G-fin.
unfortunately, we did not. So.
But I was just surprised. I mean, I get the rationale of are you rationed, but I thought it was kind of a cute origin story of that. And like I said, to find out, it's so weird. I never thought about how he said it, or like I said, what that meant.
She probably had no idea what he was talking about at the
Yeah,
time.
she didn't. But he was very like into the old school, his character in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was bizarre. So the next thing, and this isn't about dating per se, but it was in my research and I thought it was interesting. The term biological clock. So
It's ticking like
tick,
this. It came from the movie. Remember My Cousin Vinny?
yes.
Wait, sorry.
So the origins of this, so this was used in the 1970s, and it's funny because I've said it before because I am of a certain age, but I never really thought about like where I got that from. So I started trying to think about, I'm assuming it came from movies because, but anyway, so it's from the 1970s. So, and I'm sure this is pretty obvious, but it has nothing to do with biology at all. It was a cultural thing, and it was meant to discourage women from their careers and go back to like basically what we were supposed to be doing is having a husband and raising the children or whatever. And I thought it was interesting. So it's like, I get it that there's a certain age where having children is dangerous, or you maybe physically cannot have children anymore.
Or if you're too old.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like medically speaking.
Yeah, and it's dangerous for a man to have a kid too.
Yeah.
By the way,
But I'm
they
just
still
saying,
do it,
like,
but like it's
it just kind of like where it makes it where like men have all the time in the world, right? Like you have plenty of time to have children, but for us, it's like, oh my God, you're running out of time. But like, that's what I'm saying. Remember we talked about this like a while back. I was saying like in my early 20s, I thought I was running out of time because I had been brainwashed about this biological, I'm using air quotes, this biological clock is ticking. I better hurry.
Well, look, and here's the thing about that, because just want to stop and say the first time I ever heard that term, I was in biology class.
Oh,
yeah, I was.
That's what they were teaching young men.
Yeah, and that's the first time I heard it when somebody said biological clock, and I didn't understand what that meant.
Yeah,
and I was like, "What does that mean, Mister Whatever, or whoever it was there,
Mr. Smith?"
And that's the one that he told me is like, well, women only have a certain amount of time to have children, and then after that, it's done. So
yeah, but if it's a cultural thing we're trying to move, do you think that they were also that's a part of the brainwashing, is even teaching that in school?
See, I don't think it's a brainwashing, because let's say the term never existed, would that make women not want to have children? I don't think so. I think it's hardwired.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think there's certain things that women and men are hardwired, and this is through hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. We're just hardwired a certain way, and I think that's part of it, because that's a fact, right? You can't, unless maybe there is a precedent where you could be 80 and have children. I don't know. maybe that is a thing, right? But for the most part, at least if I understand it, there's a certain time frame.
Yeah.
And then after that, that's it. And then, you become menopausal. And then, after that, there's no more children.
I get that part.
You.
That's what I'm saying. I get the actual medical part. But I was thinking too, back in the day when the life expectancy wasn't as long as it is now. So back then for a woman, you were an old spinster if you were like 25, like you were already like, you know what I'm saying? But I think that there was a movement.
Over the hill, girl.
All downhill from here.
Put up the high heels because you're done. No, but it is important, right?
Because that was at a time where a lot of women were, trying to get rights and equal opportunities and going into the workforce and all that kind of stuff. And I can see, no offense, but I can see men like not liking that and wanting us to get back to the kitchen. And it's like, okay, let's kind of make up this timeline of you don't have much more time, when really you could probably safely have children into your mid 40s. Relatively safe.
Look, there's a flip side to that coin too, right? Like, I don't think it's that they want them to go back to the kitchen or anything like that. I think.
Well, I'm talking from like the 1970s, like an older 50 years ago, the way men.
Yeah,
fought.
there was a traditional family that went along that nowadays you don't see very much of, which ironically everybody wants. I mean, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to be married with children? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that that don't want that.
Al Bundy.
Even Al Bundy, I think well, he's probably the worst example because that's another pop culture thing there. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, if we're saying if what you're saying is society doesn't want that anymore, great, good for them. We'll just move forward the way we're moving forward.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's any better, but we can definitely do that. If what you're saying is that we're done with that way of life and we shouldn't want that, like, okay, great.
No, I'm not saying that. It's just the term of biological clock was something that they coined basically in the 70s because they wanted women to go back home and quit their careers and stop trying to take a man's position.
Oh, I don't.
I'm just telling you, that's where it came from.
Well, I mean, if that was to encourage, women to stay at home, I don't know. That sounds weird. I don't know how a phrase would
weird,
do that.
It's weird to think of it now, but I mean, if you think about culture, I mean, even that, how it was embedded in my mind just from seeing it on movies, it made me think at 25 that I was running out of time, which is absurd, but that was ingrained for somehow.
Yeah, I don't. Here's the thing. I don't necessarily think. I guess it depends on how you look at it, right? Running out of time, you can look at it that way.
Yeah.
Or you can not look at it that way. But the fact is, at a certain point, a woman reaches a certain age where they
I
just
get
can't
that.
have
I'm not
children.
denying
but
that
I will
at all.
say this, right? But I will say this. So like, and I see it all the time too. Like I'm on dating apps and they'll say, yeah, I'm independent, have my own business, I'm running this, I'm running that, whatever.
I don't need a man.
No, well, they're like, I don't have any children. Well, they're looking for somebody because they're on the dating site. So they can't say they don't need a man because otherwise, why would you be on this site? Because it's primarily to meet men, right? But anyways, they say all this and then they say, don't have any children, but it's still open to the idea. And maybe they're in their 40s.
Yeah.
Now, nothing wrong with that. Good for you. Now, me personally, I'm already in my 40s too. I don't want to. I already have children.
Yeah.
I've already had them for the most part. One's already an adult. The other one's on, a few more years, and he'll be an adult at least according to the law, anyways. I don't want to start all over again.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I get that you postponed, or you were focusing on your career. By all means, like absolutely. And I'm sure there's a guy out there that would want to do that.
Yeah.
But you have to look at it. Let's say it's as another term, the back nine of your career, of your life, right? Which is a golf term, which is saying like it's 18 holes. So it's like, okay, the last half of it, how do you want to run that, right? So it's the same situation. It's like, okay, I only have a few more years left in me. I've raised my children. I don't want to start all over. I want to enjoy my life. I'm finally at a place where, yes, I have my career too. I'm making a decent amount of money, and I want to go out and party. I want to have fun. I want to do these things. I've done my bit, right? I've raised my children to the best of my ability. They're doing great. I want to live life, and I want to live life with a partner that has that time, because I know, especially if somebody that doesn't have children, really it's you can tell them all day long just how much time and energy that they require, but like until you actually do it, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like saying you want to be a doctor. It's like, yeah, throw that term out there. I want to be a doctor. And it's just like, okay, you do know that it's a long journey.
Yeah.
And it's very, very, yeah, but I'll be fine. It's like, okay, maybe not. But what I am saying is that you can't, with children, you can't just quit. You can't tap out.
Right.
With being a doctor, you can always change careers or say, you know what, this isn't for me. I want to go do something else. It's like, great. But once you have children, it's an 18-year commitment. And for the majority of that time, you're constantly worrying. You have to bring them up. So don't get me wrong. The term, if that was the case, and maybe that was wrong, but I have seen it. I have seen where women, even sometimes if they have like one child, they'll put on there like, I'm open to more. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, like you would think, well, you already have one, like, but they want more. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know. I don't know if it has anything to do with their clock or them just wanting to. I think, like I said, I think you're hardwired for certain things. I know for a man, we're hardwired to teach. Like if you ever, like that's really one of the defining characteristics of a man. We just love to teach stuff. And when we have children, it's just we're able to teach them things. irrespective of them being a boy or girl, like we teach them things like, look, this is how you do this is how you do that, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, but yeah, sorry about the biological clock. Would a better term like or would you like to see something else like?
No, we've evolved since then. I'm just saying, like,
and you can freeze your eggs now too. So
Yeah.
that was a thing too, where that wasn't an option before. And get like a surrogate, a young girl that doesn't mind.
Maybe you could have a baby when you're 80 by surrogates. But yeah. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about when the first dating apps came out. So in my research, I found out the very first dating app was in 1995, and it was actually Match.com.
Yay.
And so I started thinking about, so I think I said when I first tried a dating app, I think it was like 2006. And my first dating app was Plenty of Fish. I was very naive to dating apps because I assumed that if you were on a dating app, that meant you were single. But no, this website was for people who were already with someone, who were looking for someone on the side. I did not know that.
There's a website for that. I mean, there's an app
I know.
for that,
but like I went on there thinking like, I think it was like a free site. So I was like, okay, let me try with the free one just to see how it is, right? Yeah. Let's get the mechanics of it. Every man that I met on that website was in a long-term relationship that they were trying to hide until I busted them. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, so my experience, the Plenty of Fish, I don't know if it's still around now, but
I think so. And you still get the same thing. I see it on dating apps all the time. Like, don't be married. Don't be kind of married. That's another one.
Semi-married.
Yeah, that's another one. Don't be separated, but still living together.
Is there an option for separated? Like on your taxes?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. When you do your taxes, like head of household,
I think you can have separated, like but I mean, on the dating apps, is there, when the drop down, is there one for separated?
Most guys won't do that. They won't shoot themselves in the foot like that.
Yeah.
And even some girls, because that's one of the things that I get back whenever I go on first dates. Like that's whenever I ask them about horrible experiences or bad dates, that's usually the top of them. Like, yeah, they were married. Like I have to, and which makes them very cautious after that, because then they're like, they ask you probing questions, or they try to call you randomly or things like that, because they're trying to figure out, is this dude? But and
why do you only call me at 9:30 every night and that's it?
Exactly, because that's the window that I go for a walk, sweetheart. That's why. No, but it's funny. I went on a date not too long ago, and she told me, this is a new thing, I didn't know this, that they get an app and it'll generate a new phone number. So when they give you the phone number and you exchange phone numbers, in some cases it's not their real number. So they're trying to stay away from stalkers, because I guess there's a lot of information you can get off a phone number. Oh. So they make up this random number. And so when you're texting them, it's
kind of like
app.
WhatsApp, like you can communicate, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Because like you don't, and not that I've ever looked anybody up, because what do I care, right? I'm a dude, right, mind you. So I'm a dude. Yeah. And dudes, I'm not worried about them finding out where I live or anything. Like I don't care, but I can see how dangerous it could be for a woman.
Honestly, they can just Google your name and you can find out where they live.
Sometimes, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like they do that, and I didn't know that but I kind of felt like I know why you did it, but I don't know. It kind of feels like you started out with a lie. Yeah, you know what I mean, in a weird kind of way.
Yeah.
So I kind of get it, but I'm like, okay, I get that you have to be cautious, which is why we met. At a restaurant, you always meet at a public place, right? You don't ever say, come over to my house. Although I've heard that happens a lot. Yeah. Come over to my place.
On the first date. Man, you crazy. I did try Match.com. That was I was just trying out free stuff just to see, because I was totally naive to that. I had no idea. Like I said, I thought everybody was being honest and they were single on there. That was not true. But Match.com, before it was on the internet, the company, I guess, was called Match, and it was back in, I think that was created in the 60s, and it was where it was the same concept. You filled out a questionnaire, sent it to this place, and then they sent you like 5 or 6 profiles, quote unquote, of people for you to date. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So you get like a packet, I guess, in the mail, and it says, okay, here's 6 guys that meet your criteria based on your questionnaire. Yeah. So here's their information. I don't know how that works.
They used to do videos. I think I've sent you some on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, those old videos. Yeah.
Where it's like, hi, I'm Henry. I like long, long walks on the beach
So if you like
and
spaghetti, then call
kayaking.
me. Yeah, no.
And he would just, he had a
Yeah.
big mustache and the weird shirts and stuff. But
No. I mean, before that, they had the personal ads in the newspaper and all that, but this was like an actual questionnaire, which I can't remember. I know like eHarmony does, or the ones that have those really long questionnaires
yeah.
where it's like everything, but they're really trying to match you with someone that, is going to fit you.
I think the only problem that I have with questionnaires is that a lot of times people don't answer them
Right.
honestly.
You answer the way you wish that you were.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is a problem because you're not
You
that
can't
way.
trust those personality tests, man. They're not, most
That's what I'm
people,
saying.
you don't even think about it. You're like, I wish I was like this, but you're not thinking that. You're like, oh yeah, I'm outgoing. And then you're
Right.
like, no, I guess I'm really not. Like, like you want to be.
Sure. But it's Saturday and I'm sitting eating Doritos watching TV instead of it's a gorgeous day. It's 70 degrees outside and I'm inside. So yeah, maybe I'm not so much of an outdoors person.
Yeah. And it's strange.
Because an outdoors person would be outside right now.
Exactly.
Enjoying the
I would
outdoors.
be kayaking or something. It's like
or cycling or something. But yeah.
Another fun history fact is in 1900, dating could be considered a felony. So law enforcement, when they first saw dating, they said that it mimicked too much of like prostitution because the guy would go to her house, he'd bring her flowers and candy, buy dinner. They didn't know what to
Is
make
that what
of
you're
it.
supposed to do when you go meet a prostitute?
No.
Or a sex worker?
No,
I'm sorry,
no.
I think they
Yeah.
call themselves sex workers. Is that what you're supposed to do?
No, they thought that it looked too much like that. Just the
Who does that, though? I've never done that before.
Money or valuables in exchange for time spent or other things. So I don't mean like, no, I guess you wouldn't. I mean, you could bring a sex worker some flowers if you want.
I was watching. I watch old movies, and like I think I watched Trading Places. I don't know if you ever seen that.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy. Or
yeah.
Eddie
Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, and
I don't
Jamie
remember.
Lee Curtis.
I remember it, but not.
Anyways, she was a sex worker, and one of the guys showed up at her place, and he had flowers, and it was one of her clients, and I was like, oh, I guess
that's
they
really
did
sweet.
that.
But it's funny to think because like if you think before that. Like, I mean, there was forms of dating, but like this is like the turn of like, where everybody wasn't getting married right away when they were 13 or whatever, like things were changing.
Right.
So like, yeah, I just thought it was weird. Like you could be a felon.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we don't know what this is. It's kind of like, with things with the internet, like when the internet first came out, we didn't really know, thing like cyber crime.
By the way,
what?
I'm wondering if that's why the expression that sex workers used to use, "Hey, honey, you want a date?"
I mean, I don't know.
I wonder if that's why it came up, right? Because I always thought that was a weird.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. You want to go grab some lunch? What do you mean?
You want to buy me lunch?
You know what I'm saying? But I've heard that in movies where a sex worker would be like, "Hey, honey, you want a date?"
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I want to go catch a movie.
What do they
I don't know
call
what you mean.
Like, is it an escort when you're just there to spend time with them? Like, if they have like parties they go to and they want to bring, is that?
Yeah, an escort was just supposed to be there to escort you, but then they usually got into other things.
That can call girl. I don't know. But yeah, it's just crazy to think about how dating has evolved. And I mean, I don't know if there's any like laws about it, but like you could date anyone, anytime. Like there's nothing, just the restrictions, I guess, that we used to have.
I mean, there used to be a restriction on interracial dating. So.
Yeah. We've come a long way.
Yeah, my kids are biracial, so I would have went to jail for sure.
Yeah. I typically don't date anyone of my race, so yeah, I gotcha.
You would have been against the law, girl.
Yeah. There's another term. I've never heard this one before. I'm sure you have. The term is half your age.
I don't know what that means.
What? Because you're a guy.
Oh, okay. I was like,
the term is half your age plus 7. Have you ever heard that term before?
I just heard it because I was doing some research.
Oh, okay. So before then, you'd never heard of it?
I never heard of that. But I did read that, and I thought that was weird. That's supposed to be the perfect ratio of how young you're supposed to date.
Yeah. So this came from a love manual in 1901 that was published. It was called Her Royal Highness Woman and Her Majesty Cupid. And this is where it first came out, but it's been depicted in like plays and movies and stuff like that, where, yeah, it's the same thing as like the guy saying the perfect age of a woman for them is half your age plus 7. So this has been carried on through different like pop cultures and stuff. And I guess a lot of people know it. I'd never heard of it before, but they did a study on the website OkCupid in 2010. And they were looking at, I guess on that website, maybe they were surveying, asking men, like, what's the age that you're looking for? And the majority of them put this thing, like they put the age, but the math worked out to where it was half their age plus 7, which is a weird thing. Again, maybe it's just they learned it from somewhere and it kind of kept in. But the caveat, well, the exception to that is that it said this is the case for all men except men in their mid 30s who were overly obsessed with girls in their early 20s.
That's creepy.
That was the only exception to that.
Well, yeah. I can see how they would.
But it's just weird. That's what I'm saying. Like a pop culture type thing that we all adapt and we just don't really know where it comes from. I had never heard it, but I didn't know the backstory, right? Like where it first originated from. Yeah. But men obviously.
I think that has been happening forever too, I think.
Yeah.
I think they, whether somebody puts math to it, it's the only difference. But men have been dating younger women forever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like.
The one that famously I remember, but it worked, mind you, was I like the movie The Coal Miner's Daughter with Loretta Lynn, the story about Loretta Lynn.
Okay.
Anyways, she was because he looked like, you don't know what I'm talking about, but she's a very successful country singer. She was like extremely successful. And I think she was like 13 when she met her husband, and he was like 25 or something. And back then they signed off and they let them.
She was an old spinster at 13.
Yeah. And the funny thing about her is that she had quite a few children. I must say like maybe 5 children or something like that. Maybe more than that, maybe 7. And she still had an amazing career. And he ended up staying home and taking, at least according to the movie, like, I don't know, but they stayed together forever. But I mean, she was a minor when they got together, and they've asked her about it. And she seems to she's okay with it.
Yeah.
She still loves him.
Yeah. I mean, most women that I've talked to about this, and I'm not talking about people our age, I'm saying when I was younger and I would talk to girlfriends, they would say like, yeah, I want an older guy because, and it's, I mean, everybody knows it. Sorry, Jose, but women mature faster than men. What? It's true. No so like, if I'm 18, I may not want to date another 18-year-old. It's like, I want to date a guy because he's already going to be behind emotionally and all that kind of stuff, right? Maturity. So it's like, I that's where I think a lot of that for us stems from is like I said, I'm not talking about people our age, like, you know what I mean? Like if you're the same mature at 40, you're going to probably, that's as mature as you're going to get. Like,
yes and no. I think maturity and age are two different things. I think, some guys, they can get well into their 50s and still act very immature.
Oh no, I agree.
But yeah, in general, guys tend to wise up. When you're young as a dude, you're just wild.
Yeah.
You're very aggressive, very impulsive. Getting into physical fights is not a thing. Like you're almost looking for that to a certain extent, or at least ready for it. Like, man, I'm gonna go out there. Like, you're pumped up, whatever. And then as you get older, you're like, no, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Now you still stand up for yourself, and don't get me wrong. There is a possibility you can get in a fight, but chances are you're going to be able to talk your way out of it. You're not as impulsive anymore. You take things slow. You think it out before you act. Versus when you're young, you just whatever sets you off, you're just going to react to it. And then when you're older, you kind of stop and pause a little bit and think it through. Like, do I really want to get into this with this person, or is it better just to walk away? Because this whole, posturing or whatever, for what? You know what I mean? But when you're 18, you have to prove that you're not this and you're not that. And like, I'm not weak and, I have to be macho. And it's like, yeah, I guess. Sure.
I just think that's our main motivation when we were younger, to date a guy who's a little bit older, because they're behind in the maturity to the age that we are. But I also get it from a guy's perspective. I mean, I'm assuming the main reason why you'd want to date someone half your age, I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Is
the
it?
reason.
I'm sorry, enlighten me because it's
Like
not obvious. What is
a
it?
young woman's body versus a woman of your age.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
listen. You're barking up the wrong tree here
I
because
understand. I'm
I
talking about the
love, yeah,
majority.
for sure. But I just have to go on and say that I love an older woman's body.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with a young gal. Like, yeah, it's great. Everything's where it's supposed to be. Let's say, but there is something about an older woman that just I don't know. Um, it has a little more character, if you will. I don't know. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
weird, but it's just something for me, anyways. But I'm, me. I like dating older girls. I
Yeah.
get a
But I'm
little
talking
weird,
about the
but
majority of men. They want eye candy. They want someone younger, especially you see it all the time when they get divorced. Let's say they've been married for a long time. Most of the time, the next girl they're going to get with is someone who's going to be way younger.
well,
And it's
and
less hassle
well,
too.
it's not necessarily about the hassle. But I was gonna go because I knew why I sometimes date younger women,
Uh-huh.
and it has nothing to do with their bodies. It has to do with they're just more fun. They just are.
See?
But that has nothing to do with their bodies. And
Yeah.
this is what I mean by that, right? So again, I like dating women my age. So there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. I really rather enjoy it. But they're a little more grounded and more level.
Mhm.
So if you want to be impulsive, let's just say like, and I'm not talking about like stupid impulsive, but I'm talking about like you go up to her and you're like, hey, honey, like just pack your bags. We're about to go on vacation. We're gonna get on a flight. We're gonna go. We're just gonna leave. They're gonna be like, well, I can't really do that because I've already made
So
plans and blah. And
they
there's nothing wrong with that.
right. So they have more responsibilities the older they are, and it's harder for them to be spontaneous.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, that's what I'm saying. Where you might date somebody that's younger and they'll be like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Give me 30 minutes to pack my stuff, and we're out of
No
here.
woman's ever said that 30
Well,
minutes.
irrespective, right? My whole point is like, when are we doing this? And it's like, we're doing it tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, so just give me a little time. I'm gonna pack.
Yeah.
And some women actually do. Some women they just have their stuff ready to go. Like it's. Some people don't even unpack. Like they just leave their stuff ready to go. Because I
Yeah.
did meet a 20-year-old. She travels a lot.
Uh-huh.
She goes to like New York. She goes to California. She goes to Las Vegas, and she's always going out. And sometimes like she doesn't know any, or she's met people there or whatever. But it's somewhat spontaneous. It's just like one day I would be talking to her, and then the next day it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out of town this weekend. It's like, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. And it's like, no, it wasn't. But somebody called me up and said that they had tickets to this place, blah blah blah. So they called me up, and I'm out. It's like sweet, like that's great. Whereas somebody that's a little older, it's like, no, I need to give me some time. I need to make this and make arrangements and so forth. And don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with any of that.
Mhm.
Nothing wrong with any of that. But I'm just saying that's the fun part. And sometimes, let's just say you're dating somebody that's younger, they might take you out to different places that you wouldn't ordinarily go because of your age. But
Yeah.
anyways,
And it just made me think about when I was younger, like, a friend would call you and be like, hey, let's go to the club. And you're like, all right, sweet. And you just get ready to go. But when you get older, it's like when someone calls you out of the blue, like, hey, you want to go out? You're like, man,
it's 8:30.
yeah, I got to take a shower now. I got to get
No,
ready.
yes. How
Pick
long
out
are
an
we gonna come
outfit.
home?
Yeah,
Ah,
like I got to do this the
I
next
gotta
day, so I
work
have to be home at this time,
tomorrow.
and like it's so weird.
Jeez.
Like that's changed. I'm like, I
Uh,
needed like a day in advance. Just let me know what the plans are for the weekend,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And I would imagine that that's the same thing for an older woman dating a younger guy to a certain degree. It's probably the spontaneity, the funness of it all.
Do you think
Like
that's just age, or is it just like these women that you're speaking of? Like, obviously, when you have kids, there's way more planning. You can't just leave at the drop of a hat. So, is it that, or is it women too that also don't have kids?
no. Well, this is what I think it is. I think we all kind of we try to fight aging as much as possible, and we hear all the
Uh-huh.
time like you're only as old as you feel and all that stuff, but that's not really true. And I remember I was watching. They made a remake of Vacation. The National Lampoon's
Oh
Vacation.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They did a remake,
Uh huh.
and it had speaking of Married with Children, what's her name? Christina Applegate.
Uh huh.
It had her, right? And anyways, in the movie, she goes to her old college with the sorority girls, and they were doing this drinking game. And she was like, "Man, I invented this game. Blah 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 blah. Blah. I can do it." And then she tries to do it because it's like an obstacle course, and she has to like chug a bunch of beer and then go through this obstacle course. And of course, she does it, except she's older now,
Right.
and just gets totally just beat up by everything. She ended up throwing up and shit. So my point being is that yeah, you can't 100% go back to that lifestyle because your body just can't keep up with it.
Right.
However, in little bursts, it reminds you like, oh man, that used to be fun. But again, it only can be in little bursts. That's why it's difficult when you're dating, older or younger people.
Yeah. Another one is the term like courtship versus dating. So, back when we used to say courtship, it was more about rules and rituals like surrounding that. But what changed into how dating has evolved was things like kids going to college, right? Kids, getting into the workplace where there's both sexes there. And that's kind of how, basically, because we were presented with way more options that we didn't want to just, like back in the olden days, it'd be like, or like arranged marriages, or the parents would fix you up with their friend's, child or whatever. And it's like, okay, you're going to court this guy and you really don't have a choice. But now there's so many options. So people didn't want to be tied down to a particular person, even though it was before marriage. But that's just kind of how dating evolved, is like, there's too many options. So you kind of want to test all the flavors. You know what I mean?
Sort of. I mean, you can, what I will say this, I'm a big Jane Austen fan. So I love all her books, and mostly I really enjoy the movies. Honestly, I really do love them. But courting was different. What I think now in this modern day and age, dating, right, versus courting is dating includes sex. Courting didn't. That was the main thing.
Yeah.
So, or at least it wasn't supposed to. Because because don't get me wrong, like they're a human too, so they were susceptible to those sort of things. But it was scandalous, and it was just one of those things that like, oh my gosh, like you can't be with her anymore because she's already been with a dude, and so she's off limits, or at least for that. Well, and in those books, it was like the higher society, right? So high society would have it, but even then, there were standards even in the poorer communities. Like again, you didn't want to. Your reputation was everything. And if you had a reputation for being whatever, even a dude for that sake, if you were a reputation for being shisty or whatever, like, that's not the guy that you want. But there was that difference. So, and I don't know if you ever seen like The Godfather 2, same situation. He goes to Italy and they're walking. You see the scene where they're walking together, and then it pans out and like her entire family is behind her, walking behind her, because they had to keep a close eye on her. It's like, you guys can chit chat if you want, but we got all eyes on you.
Well, yeah, they had chaperones back when you went on dates. You had to have a chaperone, and it was like taboo to be like, you shouldn't be alone with a man.
Absolutely not. There were rules around that, but that's what I'm saying. Dating nowadays, dating usually everything.
Where was the family during that love scene in The Godfather 2?
Well, he married her. He had to marry her before they got it.
That's right.
Once he married her, they backed off and like,
he got married in like a week.
Yeah, I mean, in the movie, it was like a couple of, exactly. I mean, he was on the lam. What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? You didn't know when he was gonna go back. You know what I mean? Like, what are you gonna do? What, are we gonna stop living? You know what I mean? And like she was whatever. But but yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. In old Victorian times, it was different than when you courted somebody versus what now we call dating. It's evolved. It's much more evolved. And then even the standards, for instance, I know there was at a certain point, going back to what you had said before, a guy would usually ask a woman out, and it was like 99% of the time the man is going to pay for the dinner, right? Because that's just what you do. That was a social norm.
Right.
Fast forward to these days, not necessarily. But what's funny about that is more and more, and again, I date women my age, more and more as we evolved into like, let's go Dutch or a woman paying for stuff, I'm finding that women, at least the feedback that I've gotten, they don't like that too much. And it has nothing to do with the fact that they can't afford it. They can afford it just fine.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with that. They just feel a certain kind of way about, hey, I shouldn't have to pay for this.
If I ever went on a date and the guy said to me, "Do you want to go Dutch?" I would never see that guy ever again. I am with you 100%. Like, and if the woman says, "Hey, I want to pay for mine," that's totally fine. If that's her decision, she doesn't want a man to pay her food for her food, fine. But a man to say that to me of like, "Hey, I invited you out to dinner, but you're going to pay for your own," no.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
This is the world we're living in.
I know.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. It took me a while when I first got back out there. Again, this was 2016, 17 when I finally got back out there. It took me to figure out what the landscape was like,
But you have
what
to
you could
have
and couldn't
a
do.
stance on that, because if I, as a woman, because the things that I just said, that if a guy said, I'm going to go Dutch and I would never see him again. If I went back on that, let's say that I don't like that at all, and you say, let's go Dutch, and I'm like, but I'll still give him a chance. And I basically still continue on with you. That's programming that guy to think that it's totally fine. And in my opinion, it's not. So it's like, we as women, or anyone, right? If they're doing something that's not acceptable, don't let them get a pass, because they're never going to learn going forward. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's what that therein lies the problem, because if that becomes socially acceptable, then it's socially acceptable.
I know, but if women don't like that and we don't want that to become the norm, then we have to stop continuing to date guys that are making us pay for our food.
You know, and some of those dudes, quite honestly, they might be super good looking too. So sometimes they'll put
That's
up
what I'm
with it.
saying.
You be, but
That's what I'm saying. Women need to be like, okay, I know he's good looking, but I have a standard of what I want, and this is not cool.
perhaps, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe so. I don't know. I mean, if you should go talk to your representative of union of women and propose this at your next meeting in your chapter and say, hey,
okay,
girls.
so I'll use this platform. So for any women who are listening that do not like to go Dutch, stop rewarding the man by going home with him anyway. Like, if he makes you pay for your chicken fried steak. Okay, so now I want to talk about some new dating slang. I'm really excited for this part.
All right.
And you may know some of this stuff. Like I said, I'm not really on social media. I don't really get on the internet. Like, I'm not around young people. I don't hear these terms, but you may know some of these. But I think I wrote down some, and most of them I never heard of before. So the first one is zombieing. So zombie-ing, and this is so like we all know ghosting, right? So ghosting is when they completely disappear, but zombieing is when they come back out of nowhere and pretend that nothing ever happened.
Is that what that's called?
Yes.
Huh.
Which I thought was funny, because like, I'm sure you've done that, because I think you
I thought it was going to be like a lame date or something like that.
Oh, no.
But,
no, it's
okay.
like basically, yeah, it's not just coming back from the dead. It's just like, so like if you were dating a girl and then let's say you ghosted her, you just stopped talking. And then 3 months later, you're lonely one night and you text her like, hey girl, man, how's it going? And you try to act like, no,
what
like,
you doing?
Like you didn't ghost her. Like,
you'd be surprised how often that works, by the way, but
well, but I thought the term was funny, and I was just like,
right.
I'd
So
never.
zombieing somebody is just when they just come back from the dead. Okay.
Yeah.
Come
so
back
it's
from
like
the afterlife.
ghosted you, but then they come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it must be working, because obviously there's a term for it. So
Yeah.
I would imagine that, yeah. Oof.
That was
man.
funny. The next one is haunting. And this one means when they're spying on you on social media, but they never actually try to connect with you.
How do you?
So it's like you're haunting.
Yeah, what I would say is, I don't. How do you know if somebody's looking at your stuff? I don't know how that works.
I thought it was if they pop up on people you may know. I think we had talked about this before. It was like, if you search, I know this happened to me because I was talking to maybe you, I think, about a guy that I knew in junior high, and I looked him up to see if he was on social media, and I found his page. I was just saying like, here's the dude. And then like a week later it says like, oh, you have a friend suggestion. And it was that guy. And I haven't seen him in like 25 years.
Well, that's the app doing that, because I just found out that they.
But that's what I'm saying. Wouldn't it pop up if someone was haunting you?
No, well, that's what I'm saying. You got to be careful, because there's algorithms in your phone, especially on social media, that when you mention something, it tries to feed you that same information. Like it is a real thing. We used to say, oh, they're listening, but
yeah,
and there are features on there that do that.
So even if they hear it, so if you were wanting to haunt a girl, if you just said her name by your phone.
It could be, because I would imagine that like if I say a name, they're going to be logged in as that name.
Yeah.
So then I say it out loud, they might. I'm telling you, these algorithms
all
are no
internal
joke.
Thoughts is what we need
right,
to do.
That's what I'm saying. Like these algorithms, they could probably figure out like, oh, he means this person.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like if I said Wendy, it's like, oh man, I used to date this girl named Wendy. All of a sudden, it's probably going to go through my contacts,
Yeah.
try to find out who this Wendy is and see if they
Right.
can't link it up and be like, you might know her. It's like, yeah, I do, but I
Yeah.
don't want to look her up. But that's what I'm saying. I don't know how people know for sure, because I know on my Facebook, I think it's semi-private, I think.
Yeah.
So certain things I keep just to myself and other
Yeah.
things I make public or whatever. But even if that isn't, if somebody's haunting you, quote unquote, okay.
But I wonder if haunting could be obviously for people that you are interested in, but too scared to reach out or you wouldn't, but also to your exes that they just want to see what you're up to, but maybe they don't actually make contact. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I don't think I've ever been haunted. I don't think anybody obsesses over me or gives a crap.
But nobody's ever popped up
after.
like an ex of yours. It was like just one day it pops up as, oh, somebody you might know.
No, usually it's somebody that I start dating
Okay.
will pop up because I just log their number in.
Yeah.
So if they have their phone number on there or whatever, sometimes they pop up. It's like, okay, you might know this person. But anyways, yeah. Haunting.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Another one. This is called, I'm sorry, these are just funny to me. Comet partner. And this is a person who swings by here and there for dates and hookups, but like with long periods of time. So it's kind of like people that maybe don't live around you. Mm-hmm. So let's say someone that kind of travels, you know somebody in every spot that you stay in and be like, oh, I'm going to DC. Oh, there's a girl, Sarah, I know over here. Let me hit her up. And then, so it's kind of like a comet. Like, it's just like, it's coming your way, but randomly, and there's no pattern and you're not in a relationship. It's just like, hey, I'm in town. Let's go out.
Yeah.
And maybe they come in town like 3 times a year.
Sounds great.
So you have like a comet boyfriend.
Sounds wonderful.
I guess if you want to be single
lovely.
and or let's say that you travel, like say, obviously you could have, women in different places where you don't have to like go there and be by yourself. You can just be like, oh, I know this girl. You go on a date, you take her back to your hotel or whatever. And I don't know. Or like I said, just, yeah, I mean, it's just a funny thing to think about. If you want to be single, and you just have not friends with benefits, because that's different.
Because you're not friends.
Right. You're not friends, but there's also no
just benefits.
Like communication regularly. It's just kind of one-offs here and there randomly.
Yeah. Look, I think what's happened, you call it the hookup culture, which to a certain extent it is, right? It's still kind of that. But it's also, I think, even goes a little deeper. I think people have needs. Not necessarily always physical. They have needs. And it's very difficult to find one person that satisfies all those needs.
Right.
It's extremely difficult to find somebody. So there might be somebody that you like to be physical with, but just afterwards, there's just nothing. It's just nothing. It's just like talking to a brick wall. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, or just somebody that you have no interest in. You don't like anything about them aside from the physical part. And then there's other people that you love, chatting with them all the time. You're not sexually attracted to them, but you just love hanging out with them and just having a good old time. There's other people that are just, they're just emotionally available that you can like talk to and just hang out with or whatever. And they're the shoulder that you cry on or whatever. But again, have no physical, you know what I mean? Like you don't want to be in a relationship with them. You just like enjoying their, whenever you have something emotional, there's something about that person, they get you. And so it makes sense, this comet thing, because again, now the problem with that is that it's too much, right? Because when you find a partner, a steady partner, they might not be able to be everything for you, but at least they're available at the time, right? Because you can't pick and choose, A, when you get in the mood, or B, when you're having an emotional crisis, or, when you just want to chat with somebody. So if you have 3 or 4 different people that you do that among, you might not be able to call on them whenever you need them. Whereas if you have a partner, you kind of expect them like, hey, I really need you to listen to me, right? Or I need you to be emotionally available. Or, if you need to get physical, like, hey, we need to get down.
I wonder too if the comet partner can translate to friendships. You know how sometimes you have friends where you may not see them for like 10 years and then you see them and it's just like you never missed a beat almost. Kind of the same.
I do that all the time with my friends. Sometimes with women, but not necessarily. That's what I'm saying. It's hard.
Yeah.
Unless you're rocking it like that for the dude.
Yeah.
A woman might be able to get away with that because, like she's a woman, but a dude, in order for that, if it's a comet dude, he's probably super duper duper good looking. Mm-hmm. And that's super duper, not just super, but there's a duper that goes on because most people don't go for that. They usually want somebody that I don't want to just be used just for my body, blah, 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 which is essentially what that's happening at the same time. It's like, it's fun.
Yeah. Another slang is called DTR, conversation. We all know what this is, but this is define the relationship. This is the conversation you have to say, will you be my girlfriend?
What was it again?
DTR. Define the relationship.
Oh, down to relationship is what I was thinking. I was thinking DTF. But
girl, you down? I'm down to relationship.
I'm down to relationship. I was like, oh, is that really a term?
Yeah,
okay.
But it's basically, instead of, I guess you could say, I don't know if the young people say this, to be like, hey, can we have a DTR conversation?
Oof.
And then it's like, are we doing this or not? Like, what's up? What's up? But yeah.
But and I was thinking about that. I was kind of going through some of the topics to discuss, but I did think about how weird that is whenever, and I don't want to go too much and digress too much, but just going off into like, if you were once engaged, right? And then what separated you or what spawned the breakup was that they wanted to go to the next level and you didn't. I always thought that was kind of, because it doesn't necessarily need to be with marriage, but let's just say you're casually dating somebody and then they want to have that conversation. It's like, okay, they want to take it to the next level, but you're not willing to go there.
Right.
So you have a good thing now.
Yeah.
But because one person wants to take it to the next level, now you're like, oh, I can't go there. Not yet. So then you break up.
Right.
And then maybe that's when they become comets. Because again, you never knew them as a regular. And I think that's what ends up happening with comets. I think there's something that wasn't, let's say, there's no closure to it. Mm. It's like we could have been something more, but we just never really took it there.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes they actually feel like, well, they're coming around, so maybe there's a chance that we might be. But I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
I don't know. A few weeks ago, we were talking about emojis, and the eggplant emoji came up. And what I thought was interesting about this is that the reason why the eggplant emoji only means that one thing is because all the other ones that are that we do use for like peaches, right? Like you use it for that, but it could also mean other things. But the eggplant, there's no denying what you mean when someone says,
I'm hungry.
No one's hungry for eggplant. Okay.
Eggplant Parmesan? No. I mean, that's what I thought.
I guess if you batter it and cover it in sauce and cheese, like maybe it's edible at that point.
Put some cheese on there. Put a cheese.
Yeah. But that's the only emoji that like really only means that one thing.
There's a poopy emoji, but wasn't that yogurt or something?
A what?
The poopy emoji?
Uh-huh.
They have a poopy emoji. There's no other.
That means yogurt?
No, I thought it at the moment. I thought it was like it was supposed to be for yogurt.
Chocolate?
Yeah,
you thought that
it wasn't originally, or was it always meant for poop? Like
I've never heard anyone say this ever.
When it first came out, like this,
people thought it was chocolate yogurt.
Yeah, they thought it was like yogurt or something like that, and then it was like, no, that's poopy, man. That's so. There's another.
I guess nobody poops in a perfect like swirl like that.
Who poops like that? They need to go see the doctor if that's how their poop is coming out. Because
maybe that's the way we're supposed to poop. Maybe it's just like a perfect. This not
like soft serve ice cream.
Yeah, 2 girls 1 cup. I don't know. I've never heard anyone think that was. That's really cute. I've never heard that.
It doesn't even necessarily look like a poopy. Not exactly, but anyways.
So you want the phones to come up with a more realistic emoji for poop?
No. That's what I'm saying.
What about Mr. Hanky? The Christmas poo, is that?
Oh, I don't know.
From South Park?
Oh, I don't watch South Park. Sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know, but that one's another one that's also you can't disguise that one. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't have multiple meanings. It just means poop.
No. Because
it's yogurt.
No, I was just thinking like sometimes if you want to convey that someone's being a little
crappy.
No, like just I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like, oh, you're being poopy. Like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like you're just being kind of like down, a little mean. You're just kind
Yeah.
of being saucy,
Yeah.
you
But I
know?
think the implant one, yeah, to your point, is
Yeah.
very, very universal.
Yeah.
People know what that means
Yeah.
whenever you send that
But
out.
I don't think
It,
anyone's ever sent an
but
implant.
I'm not gonna lie to you. That wasn't always evident for me. This only came like 2 or 3 years
You
ago.
thought it was a big purple
I
jelly
don't know what
bean?
it was, but I remember we were in a mixed company. It was me and my buddies who are the same age as me, excuse me, and we were with a bunch of 30-year-olds. And then that conversation came up about the eggplants, and they're like, "Yeah, that's what that means." And
Yeah.
some of them were like, "What? What are you talking about?" Like, but we're old, right? We're
Yeah.
used to texting in sentences, not
Yeah.
emojis. So they were like, "That's what that means." And anyways, it turned into
I
a
like it
thing.
when really old people use emojis. I think it's really cute. Like,
I
you
mean,
know what
I use them not a lot.
When they came out, the old people loved emojis.
Yeah.
They were like, this is the best thing.
They just have so many different smiley faces and
Yeah.
smile and laughing faces. Like you don't know. And I know some of them have hidden meanings in there
Yeah.
too. So I'm like, am I using the right one? Is that
Yeah.
overly, is that too?
Maybe we should
happy?
look up, like
don't
a chart of all the emojis and then what they mean exactly.
Yeah, we need to have a podcast about that.
This is how you text for a relationship with all
Yes.
emojis only.
Yes.
Another term is called a half night stand. And this is when you leave right after sex instead of staying the full night. So a one night stand is when you actually spend the night. A half night stand is when you're done. You're like, okay, bye. And then they leave.
Wow. All right.
I would prefer a half night stand. It's like, okay, bye. I didn't know. I don't know if there was a term before this, but that's the new slang.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Your mind is working. I could tell.
No, I'm just trying to figure out.
You're like, how many half night stands have I had?
Exactly. Versus one night stands.
Yeah.
And I think there's a term 2 night stand, right?
Oh yeah, I think it was. I saw it. There was like a. Oh man, I can't remember. It was something like that, meaning you've done that a couple of times with that person.
Yeah, like that's happened. Where it's happened like
2 night
times.
stay, like at a hotel.
No, but it's like it happened 2 times. Like you just hooked up with them twice, and you went on the first date, you hooked up with them, and then the second time you went out, you hooked up with them, and then that was it.
You forgot you hooked up with them the first time.
Well, no, you do, but that was it. Like
Yeah.
you're done after that for one reason or the other.
Yeah. Another term is called fubbing, and this is for people who
Fun.
What?
I said, that sounds fun. What does that mean?
It's for people who pay too much attention to their phone, like when they're on a date or they're with someone. And it's the two words is phone and snubbing just put together. So we've talked about that. Like I told you, when I go on a date, I'm not on my phone. It's not out on the table, but we've all seen it. And if it works for you, fine. But if you're out on a date and both of you, or maybe one's on their phone, the other one's just sitting there staring at you, waiting for you to get off your phone or whatever. But yeah, it's called fubbing.
It's not so fun.
It's not as cute as it sounds.
No.
Kind of sounds like some kind of character.
Yeah, it sounds annoying is what it sounds. But anyways, all right. Now I don't like that word.
The last one that I'll end on, this one's called turkey dump. And this is mainly for like college students when they, let's say you're dating someone in high school and then you go away for school, right? You come home for Thanksgiving and then on your way back. So like, okay, you came home for Thanksgiving, you saw your high school girlfriend, let's say, you go back to college. And after that, you realize it's too difficult to try to make the relationship last. So you basically break up after Thanksgiving break.
Yeah.
So turkey dump. But I was thinking too, do you think part of that is because this is not terrible, but like Christmas is coming up and you don't want to have to like,
I hope not.
I don't know. I mean, like, it's like, I mean, you've heard people break
Turkey
up
reindeer dump, maybe?
right before Valentine's Day or something, they'll break up. You know what I mean? Because they don't want to have to put in that effort.
I don't know. That maybe there's people like that. I would say it's usually not a good idea to start dating people right before Valentine's.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Because it's weird. If you've been on like 2 dates right before Valentine's, it's hard because now you're like, okay.
Or their birthday, you don't know what to do.
Well, their birthday, there's nothing wrong because they don't expect anything for your birthday.
Some women do.
I think it depends, right? Because if you've been dating, if you went on 2 or 3 dates right before your birthday, it's your birthday. So, like, you know what I mean? That's somebody that, I don't know.
I mean, that varies from person to person.
Yeah, it does.
If you've been turkey dumped, that means after Thanksgiving, you're like, you know what?
Yeah. And chances are they knew before they did it too. They just want to get those last bit.
I guess so.
And then, got to go and like, see ya.
But
Sorry.
but that is some history about dating, a little slang, some old slang, some new slang. Yeah. So we're all learning together. We appreciate you guys sticking with us for this lesson.
Absolutely. It's a good lesson.
Yeah.
Turkey dump. That's one I've never heard. But no, this was fun. This was absolutely fun.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.